You're fine.
Ready to
So
go.
we're in the
That's
final
very
four.
fun.
So it's
Ready?
yeah, it's- can't complain.
All right. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you all for joining us for the Housing Board meeting of the Indiana Housing Community and Development Authority. General Counsel, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. I'm calling to order the March 2018 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. And the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 22nd, 2018 board meeting, and I will entertain a motion if there are no corrections or additions.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and it does pass. And please welcome Zach Gross to discuss the award recommendation for the Indiana Housing First program. I'm excited to hear all the good things you're going to tell us.
Good morning.
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 Thank you for being here and allowing me to present to you today. I'm Zach Gross, the Supportive Housing Manager of the Real Estate Department in IHCDA. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Housing First program and give you a background. So the Indiana Housing First program was established through state legislation in 2017 to provide rental assistance and supportive services to individuals and families with a serious and persistent mental illness, a chronic chemical addiction, or a serious and persistent mental illness with a co-occurring chronic chemical addiction, who are also facing a housing crisis or exiting a residential treatment program. This program uses a Housing First model, meaning that each participant is not required to receive services in order to be housed. Instead, any services provided to a participant are chosen by that participant and are predicated on a harm reduction approach to treating addiction. Supportive services are offered to maximize housing stability and prevent returns to homelessness or treatment programs. In December 2017, IHCDA released a draft program manual for public comment, followed by an informational webinar. On to explain that draft of the program manual. The final policy and request for qualifications was released on January 29th, 2018. In February, IHCDA conducted an additional informational webinar regarding this RFQ. Responses are required to be submitted on or before February 26th. Eligible respondents were 501c3 nonprofit organizations. By that deadline, IHCDA received 11 responses requesting an aggregate award of $2.9 million. However, IHCDA had a total of 1.95 available for allocation. So the process, there was a selection committee composed of IHCDA staff. Each member of that selection committee individually reviewed all of the responses and then met as a group to discuss the merits of each response. The selection committee's review and funding recommendations was based on the following factors: compliance with the RFQ submission, experience with the respondent, particularly experience administering rental assistance, providing supportive services, and utilizing a Housing First model, financial capacity, readiness to proceed as demonstrated by identification of appropriate partners and implementation timeline, program design, including but not limited to the proposed tenant selection plan, the service delivery model, and the budget, and their past award performance. As a result of that review, staff is recommending that the board approve the allocations listed in Table A to be made to the 7 organizations to implement the Indiana Housing First program. And attaches also a funding map identifying the areas that will be served with the program by each applicant. And I will pause now for questions.
Board, any questions for Zach? Zach, I think we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests that the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve an awarding an allocation of the Indiana Housing First program funding in an aggregate amount not to exceed $1.95 million to the 7 organizations listed in Table A as recommended by staff.
We have a motion. Is there, or no, we don't have a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
It's been moved and approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
And please welcome Peter Nelson to discuss a recommendation regarding the bond volume 4% credits for Union at Crescent.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
I am here today to recommend Union at Crescent for funding, 4% tax credits in bond volume. This was the 23rd application we received as part of the 2017 AB round. As you know from last month's board meeting, we started accepting applications for our competitive 9% round in November. So any of the applications that were submitted just before or during that time frame for the open bond round was reviewed when we had time, but mostly put on hold. So we still have a couple in the pipeline that we'll be reviewing, but this is one of the final 2017 projects. It is developed by Mecca Companies, and they are proposing the new construction of 146 family units in Bloomington. It's a mixed income property, so the project will have 44 market rate units. 102 units will be affordable. The project will consist of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and the development team has committed to setting aside at least 10% targeting single-family households. And they will include some services in the property specifically targeted toward assisting that community and bettering that community. The site is located along a future extension of the Beeline Trail in Bloomington, so there's going to be some access to downtown Bloomington. I know when the development team met with us, they were talking about potentially getting some bicycles for the residents to use the new trail when it's in, so they can have transportation alternatives to get to downtown Bloomington. There will also be a bus stop adjacent to the residents, so they can have quick access and transportation options. This project represents a total development cost of just almost $21.5 million. They are requesting $13,146,582 in bond volume, $583,072 in LIHTC annually for 10 years, as well as $500,000 in our Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund. The real estate staff reviewed the application to make sure it met all of our criteria in the 2018-2019 QAP, and the development team was able to meet with us and present the project on February 13th of this year. And we are happy to recommend the full allocation of the bond volume, tax credits, and development fund for this project. At this time, I'm happy to entertain questions.
Peter, you said that there were single units and they were appropriate services for them? What kind of services do you have for?
Teams aren't necessarily, as part of the new QAP, the 2018-19 QAP, teams aren't necessarily committed to any specific terms because it takes some time to get these projects built, and a lot of service providers are hesitant to commit to specific LOIs or anything if they're not 100% sure a service won't be built. However, I know for this project they are having, they're partnering with banks for like funding services and classes, and hopefully in the future home ownership opportunities for that community. So those are some of the small ones, but the services aren't necessarily set in stone at this stage. We'll see stronger commitments when they get to the final application process.
Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, is the lower income units, are they spread across the mix of unit sizes? Does that make sense, or are they all?
Yeah, they are. I think we have it in one of the documents, but some of the 3 bedrooms are more of the market rate. So we have, actually it's not in here, the specific breakdown, but more of the 3 bedrooms are market, but there are some 3 bedrooms that are the affordable units, but it is a pretty good mix throughout the number of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, one comment. Obviously, when we ever talk about bonding, these bonds obviously will not be part of IHCDA's to pay back, so they will be the responsibility of the developer. But one question I had, any update as the tax credit market has evolved from tax reform, and we're now moving into, obviously, almost the first 3 months of 2018 done. I just didn't know if there was any new developments in that marketplace due to the tax reform?
Last night, the omnibus bill that was passed for the 9% credits includes a 12.5% increase for us to help. So that was actually, that just happened just last night. On the 4% deal, there was also there was some language in there to fix the 4% at a true 4%. That didn't get passed. So it's still a floating rate on the three. So I don't know what the rate is today on the 4% rate. But that piece did not get passed. So in terms of the equity investments, I think things seem to be going pretty well. I think prices have rebounded somewhat with what we are underwriting at. Based on our underwriting criteria, we're underwriting it at where we think the market is right now. And it hasn't fluctuated as much as we've seen it in certain situations when there's new legislation or things like that, or there's a disruption in the marketplace. We haven't seen that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I'd just echo Jake with that as far as equity goes. We've seen a pretty good stabilization, high 80s, low 90s even on some projects as far as equity pricing. I believe this project is at 91 cents, which is pretty good.
And that's what that's where we're underwriting, doing the physical analysis,
Yeah,
stress
yes,
testing
absolutely.
at those price points. So, yeah.
Any additional questions? Peter, I think we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $13,146,582 in bond volume, $583,072 in annual LIHTC, and $500,000 in affordable housing and community development funds to Union at Crescent LP for Union at Crescent according to the terms of the 2017 AB application round as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
Second.
It's been moved and approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And now, please welcome Alan Rakowski to discuss the recommendation regarding the Overlook Point Apartments Limited Partnership Bond Recommendation.
Thank you. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor, members of the board. Here
Morning.
today to present the final bond allocation for Overlook Point Apartments. So the bonds will be issued on behalf of Overlook Apartments LP, an Indiana limited partnership. IHCDA will serve as a conduit issuer for the bonds, thereby loaning the proceeds to the borrower to finance the acquisition, construction, improving and equipping of a residential rental development. The bonds are backed solely by the revenues derived from the development and will not constitute a debt, liability, or obligation of the authority or the state of Indiana. Overlook Point Apartments is a 248-unit development in Lafayette. If you recall, this was brought to you in January for the approval of the bonds, initial approval of the tax credits in the bonds. It's acquisition and construction. The authority is serving as the issuer of the bonds. Because of that, an additional approval by the board is needed, in addition to the approval of the allocation of tax credits and bond value as required at this time. So the recommendation that we have is for the board to approve the issuance of Series 2018 multifamily housing revenue bonds pursuant to the attached resolution. I want to acknowledge that Michael Allen from ICE Miller is here. He can answer any questions. If you have specific questions about the resolution, he'd be available to help answer those. So at this time, I'll pause if there are any questions.
Are there any questions for Alan? Alan, we're ready for your resolution.
Okay. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approves Series 2018 multifamily housing revenue bonds to Overlook Point Apartments project pursuant to the attached resolution as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
So move?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Thank you. And I believe you have a recommendation regarding multiple PEDCOR borrowers refinancing bond.
Correct. So this one, the purpose of this recommendation and memo and the attached resolution is to request the approval for the issuance of 5 Series 2018 multifamily housing revenue bonds, not to exceed $25 million, and the loan proceeds thereof to multiple borrowers related to PEDCOR Investments LLC, to redeem previously issued bonds and refinance the multifamily housing projects described in the resolution. So on the process, the bonds will be issued on behalf of PEDCOR borrowers, each of which is an Indiana limited partnership. IHCDA will serve as a conduit issuer for the bonds, thereby loaning the proceeds to the borrower to redeem previously issued bonds and refinance a multifamily housing project. projects. Security for the bonds will be fully modified Ginnie Mae mortgage-backed securities. The bonds are backed solely by the revenues derived from the Ginnie Mae's and will not constitute a debt, liability, or obligation of the authority or state of Indiana. These projects are projects that were developed between 1995 and 2001. They are located in Michigan City, Seymour, Anderson, Crawfordsville, and Indianapolis. They are not seeking a new tax credit allocation, and no volume allocation is required because the principal amount of the bonds will not exceed the outstanding amount of the prior bonds. So the recommendation is to approve the issuance of Series 2018 multifamily housing revenue bonds and the loan proceeds thereof to PEDCOR borrowers pursuant to the attached resolution. I want to acknowledge that Susan Croney from PEDCOR is here. Also, Phil Janettos from ICE Miller also is present, and they would be available to help answer any questions. So at this time, I'll pause and see if there are any questions you might have.
Any questions for Alan?
We spoke with ICE Miller about it, so, I mean, we're comfortable with the transaction, so, and what it's doing, and again, it's not gonna be backed by any IHCDA bonds, will be backed by Ginnie Mae, so just wanna let the board know that we did discuss it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alan, I believe we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve the Series 2018 multifamily housing revenue bonds and the loan of the proceeds thereof to PEDCOR borrowers pursuant to the attached resolution as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
It's been moved and approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
And please welcome Matt Rayburn to discuss the IHCDA disaster response update. Morning.
Good morning, Board.
Morning, Matt.
I'm pleased to be here this morning. This is an item that was not in the original board packet because we wanted to get live numbers. These are updated as of this morning, so you should have a handout that was placed at your desk called IHCDA Response to February 2018 Flooding. So I think this morning I'm going to continue my trend. I never get to just come before the board and recommend a good project for funding. It's always either the equity market's gone to heck or 35 counties are underwater. It's always something exciting. But today we're talking about the recent flood, and the good news is that IHCDA has been able to respond in conjunction with Homeland Security and provide a lot of assistance to keep individuals from being displaced. So as a little background here, in late February of 2018, there was serious rainfall and flooding that occurred throughout the state. And as a result, over the last several weeks, Governor Holcomb has since issued a disaster declaration on 35 counties throughout the state. Those counties are listed on your memo here, and you will see that they are spread throughout the state. It's really not one geographic area. This is spread throughout the state. In response to that, once a disaster declaration is made through the governor's office, the Indiana Department of Homeland Security really springs into action in implementing their disaster recovery plans. And part of the state's disaster recovery plan is a housing portion. And the housing recovery plan was written by IHCDA and Homeland Security back in 2012 when we responded to the Henryville tornado and the lessons that we learned from that disaster recovery effort. So one of the main tools that the state uses in its disaster recovery is what's called a one-stop shop. And the idea of a one-stop shop is that when individuals have been displaced or otherwise affected by a disaster, the state desires to have one centralized disaster center that individuals can come to access multiple services so that they're not spending all day driving to different offices or making a lot of phone calls. So Homeland Security did some analysis, and while we have those 35 counties, in some cases it's more damage to infrastructure. What Homeland Security wanted to do was identify where are the counties and areas of the state that have the highest impact on actual residents, individuals who have been affected, their homes, loss of property. So they identified DeMotte in Jasper County, Elkhart in Elkhart County, Lake Station in Lake County, and Utica in Clark County, which is just outside of Jeffersonville, as being the 4 hardest hit areas as far as residents impacted. So one-stop shops were opened in all of those centers. The one-stop shops included services ranging from the Department of Mental Health and Addiction was there to provide access to counseling for individuals who are experiencing trauma. The health department was there giving free tetanus shots, printing birth certificates for individuals who lost vital records during the flood. BMV is there helping individuals re-get driver's licenses, titles, again, those vital documents that may have been washed away. IHCDA so then was one of about 9 or 10 agencies there on site. So we were there all days that the one-stop shops were open, providing housing assistance. So particularly, we provide 2 specific services, although in general, we're also there just to answer questions about housing, use the Indiana Housing Now website to help individuals find new housing options. But the 2 particular programs that we offer during times of disasters are first, a emergency hotel voucher program. And this program is really designed for individuals who ultimately will be able to return to their home. They're not looking for long-term housing options, but they need to be out of the home for a while it is repaired. So we offered a emergency hotel voucher at all these one-stop shop locations. And the second program we offer is a disaster rental assistance program. That is for those individuals who are permanently displaced. In many cases, we saw homes where the foundation had been greatly affected and the home was going to be condemned. So individuals that qualify for disaster rental assistance, IHCDA can pay the security deposit and first 2 months of rent to get them reestablished in a permanent housing option. So between those 4 one-stop shop locations, and then we were also asked to help remotely with some households in St. Joseph County through the St. Joseph County Emergency Management Agency. So I have for you here on the chart at the bottom of your memo, across all those one-stop shops, we assisted a total of 143 families over the past 2 weeks. 85 of those families received a hotel voucher for intermediate housing needs, and 58 were given disaster rental assistance for long-term housing solutions. You'll see here that while many of the shops had somewhat consistent numbers, Elkhart was certainly the biggest. Of the 143 families we assisted, 79 were in Elkhart County. And we really saw that there were a couple neighborhoods in Elkhart there along the river where it was older homes, all with many with basements, and most of the systems were in the basement. So the water heater, the electric boxes, many of these basements had 5 to 6 feet of standing water, and the households were just the river was continuing to be up. They were not able to pump the water out of the homes yet. So the numbers for hotel vouchers were very high in Elkhart. 55 families we gave hotel vouchers to because they were not able to pump the water out of their basement yet, and until they did that, they were not able to get heat and electricity back on in their homes. And the week that we were up there for 5.5 days. It snowed on us 3 days there. So these were families that it was 20 degrees outside and snowing, and many of them were staying in their home without electricity and heat. So we were able to hotel those individuals and get them into a safe, warm place. I wanted to quickly update the board on kind of the budgetary impact of this. We certainly don't know the final numbers. That's something that I'll be tracking closely over the coming weeks as we receive final invoices from landlords and hotels that we're working with. Did want to remind the board, especially those on the budget committee, that each year I do put a line item into the budget specific for disaster assistance. So we have $150,000 held in the budget just for these programs. It has been many years since we've seen numbers this high. The last disaster assistance program we ran in 2016 was with the Kokomo tornado, and we helped about 20 or 30 households, so much lower than what we did here. I've tried to run some rough numbers based on fair market rents in the counties that we were in, average hotel bills, and based on these 143 households, I'm estimating we are going to get close to using that full $150,000 that's in the budget just on this disaster recovery. I'll be happy to update the board in a month or 2 on where those final numbers land. But wanted to bring that up today, one, just to let you know kind of about the amount of assistance we're providing, but also to let you know that as we move more into the traditional storm season coming ahead and potential tornadoes, that if we get hit by any other disasters this spring or summer, we'll probably need to convene the budget committee and talk about doing an amendment to the budget to put more money in that line item, because this event has almost wiped us out of our disaster money. So before I convene and ask questions, I did want to recognize the staff that worked with me on this initiative, and I think at least 2 of them are in the room. So Brian Phillips from our marketing and communications team worked with me. He worked at the DeMott and Lake Station as our team lead there, and Jeff Zongalowitz, who I don't think is in the room, from our Housing Choice Voucher team, worked with Brian at those 2 stations. And then I went up to Elkhart, and Zach Gross, who you met earlier today for the Housing First presentation, went with me to Elkhart. We covered the 5.5 days up in Elkhart. And then Zach and I did 2 of the 3 days in Utica, and then Brian and Chris Henderson from our IT team, who I don't think's here today either, was the other. So that was the team of 5 that handled those 2 weeks of disaster assistance, and just wanted to publicly thank them for their assistance. It was 12-hour days at some of these shops, and the team was willing to be away from their families for several days, long hours, to provide assistance to needy families, and we were glad to do it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the program in general or the assistance we provided over the past 2 weeks.
Any questions? Thank you, Matt, and thank you to everyone who helped those families in need.
Absolutely.
The greatest service we can provide.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Jacob,
Okay. Well,
showtime.
yeah, let me give you a couple of updates here from me. In your packet, you'll see we have the 2017 annual report we have for you. This will be going out tomorrow in a digital format, but we also have some printed copies. I know some folks like printed copies, so I'll let you kind of review this on your own, but really proud of last year's accomplishments that we were able to do, and looking forward to this year. But there's quite a few things here. When you break it down, it's hard to fit it all into one little form, but I think we captured some of the highlights from last year. Specifically the Housing First legislation that was passed, and we had the board approve that today. Our strategic plan was obviously very important, and the time that we put into engaging our partners and going across the state and listening. Our home ownership products continue to do well, along with our team with preserving assets, our hardest hit funds, foreclosure prevention. Remember, we put a budget line item in for doing a commercial promoting home ownership. Again, very successful. Another successful year with the housing conference. Creating places, that placemaking initiative that we launched at the first of this year has really taken off, and really saw some really high-profile projects. Our response with moving forward as it relates to Lake County and West Calumet Apartments. And so just many different things that we've done here, and I think I'm really proud to see all of us try to capture that in a very small, short document. So,
What was your greatest satisfaction, accomplishment,
I would say the one that really stood out to me was how we responded to the West Calumet Apartments disaster up there. We had, we were asked to step into a situation that really wasn't our situation. However, we knew that, like when flooding happens or there's other types of disasters, we have a role, and housing has a role in that. So being able to be one of the first to really support the East Chicago Housing Authority on the transition and relocation of some, 1,600 people. And then being able to come up with a solution to begin to rebuild and provide, create new affordable housing opportunities in that area, I think was very good. And using the platform and moving forward was a great engagement. We had residents from West Calumet Apartment participate in that and giving us feedback on the units that we're working on designing to build. So I would say our response to West Calumet Apartments and the partnerships at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level, and even with the residents, like we did in this last month, our team would go up there on a Saturday and meet with residents and sit at a table across from them and listen and try to help them identify housing options. And so, again, I think that's just a great example of the teamwork that we have here at IHCDA and the type of employees that we have. So.
and the type of leadership.
Oh, well, thank you. And on all the team too, so, yeah. So I think that was our greatest accomplishment. So. In December, I want to give you a quick update on December. I gave you an update on our hardest hit fund. We had an audit by the Special Inspector General and the U.S. Department of Treasury. They identified a couple of areas where they had some concerns. We did get a letter from them last week, March 13th, and they did require that we reimburse Indiana's hardest hit fund for some administrative cost. It was $15,500. So we have transferred those dollars over to the Indiana Hardest Hit Fund from IHCDA's general fund we budget for certain situations like this when we have issues where there's like some non-compliance. So that was done. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of it, because I did make you aware that we did have some items that were observations from Treasury. We have since put in place, made changes to make sure that those don't happen again. But those administrative dollars. The good thing with this, though, is that $15,500 is staying in Indiana. It is staying within the fund, so we're going to be able to reallocate those dollars. But so I was concerned that they would go back to the U.S. Department of Treasury, but they're not. They're staying here at IHCDA. So, but anyway, I can make you aware of that. The other piece I want to make you aware of, we administer the performance-based contract for HUD, which is about a $183 million contract, and it provides project-based vouchers for rental assistance. And we've had that contract now, and we've been on an ongoing contract, renewal contract for the past 6 years. Earlier this year, HUD issued an RFP to recompete that contract. And part of that plan was to move us into a region with Illinois. And so we were working closely with the Illinois Housing Development Authority to respond to the RFP. In fact, some of the team from Illinois Housing had come over to IHCDA. We were beginning to work on the partnership, logistics, the structure of how we would apply. And then, within just like 3 days later, we were notified that HUD was canceling the RFP. So we're not sure where this is going again. So we're kind of restarting. There was a lot of public comment that HUD received on the PBCA draft that they issued. So I just want to make you aware, we still have the contract to the end of this year. However, we're not sure what HUD's intentions are in terms of RFPing this out and how they want to competitively bid it out. So, but whatever way that they're looking to do that, we obviously will respond. But right now that RFP has been canceled. So again, but we still have a great relationship with the Illinois Housing Development Authority, and if we need to partner with them or any other state, we will do that. So that's a quick update on that one. I do have another handout for you, the Moving Forward RD, Rural Development. This is an initiative that, when we've been using this Moving Forward concept here for the last 3 years. This will be our 4th year, and we like to take on big challenges when it comes to affordable housing. The first year we did Moving Forward, we partnered with PEDCOR and BWI, and both of those developments actually have broken ground, and the picture you see on the annual report is the groundbreaking in Fort Wayne. And then a few weeks ago, we just broke ground with PEDCOR in Bloomington on their Moving Forward. But we're looking at, everything's been new construction, and we've been doing it primarily focused in some of our urban areas. Moving Forward RD is going to take the approach of preserving our existing affordable housing in our rural communities with USDA. And so we've had some good conversations with USDA on helping us, making sure that this is a priority for them and that they would help us streamline the process for our developers to preserve these properties. So we've had a lot of discussions. What is unique about this opportunity is that we will be using 9% credits and 4% credits with multifamily bonds and combining them together. And that has never been done using USDA products. And so we're really excited. We've had a lot of folks looking at this to make sure that the financing model will work. We've gotten only positive feedback, and so this is just we're still starting with this. I believe within the next 2 months or so, we'll have an RFQ, request for qualifications, from developers, issuing that here this spring. So I wanted to make you aware of it. There's obviously a lot of partnerships with this, with IHCDA, with Energy Systems Network, Purdue University, Affordable Housing Association of Indiana, and USDA. So we have quite a bit of partnership here and everybody working together. We're looking at 30 properties. And just to put that in scale, we only do traditionally about 3 properties a year that we rehab and preserve. With IHCDA, we're looking at doing 30. And so this is a major undertaking and a major initiative that we would take on. So We hope that this financing model can be replicated once we do this, and that's the other piece to this, is to create a business model that can be replicated in the future rounds to preserve affordable housing, so. I'm sorry.
Now, out of the 472 properties, we're doing 30?
Yes, yes.
So do we have a schedule for the others, or have we given any thought? Is this a pilot? We're just going to see how it goes? Or-
Yeah, number one, we want to demonstrate that that we can provide this type of financing model using 4 or 9%, so that outside of moving forward, it can be replicated. So the other thing that we're looking, this may be a multi-year initiative, so this is the first year. We may decide that if it really turns out like we're thinking, maybe we do it again with moving forward RD in another year. So we'll continue to chip away at these 472 properties. So, and hopefully that some developers will be able to take this without using moving forward and just come in under a normal tax credit round, whether that be 4% or 9% round. So, yeah.
So is there a schedule, like the 472 properties, they're going to age out in 2020 or 2024? Or
Yes, there is. We have a list of each year when these properties are maturing and when they will lose their affordability. So yes, we do have, with USDA, we do have a list knowing when these properties are expiring. So yes, because they have financing with USDA, and some of these properties, not all of them, but some of them have rental assistance as well. So,
Okay.
okay. Just real quick, I also mentioned we're moving to the the 9th floor of 30 South Meridian, so we'll be going down one floor. Currently, demolition has started. We're on time to have our move by August 1st. So we're certainly working on and staying on pace to keep us so that we can move in on our new office on August 1st to have the 4th floor and the 10th floor be on one floor, all on 9. So we're working on that. The other thing I want to mention real quick is our April board meeting will be in Paoli at One College Hill Apartments. It was a development that IHCDA financed for affordable housing for seniors, and it's in Paoli. So we'll be there on April, actually I don't have the exact date, but our April board meeting will be in Paoli. So,
The end of April, isn't
yes,
it?
the 4th Thursday. So.
April 28th?
6, maybe.
So, then the last thing I have here before we adjourn, on March 9th, we had a birthday. So, it was a birthday here at IHCDA. IHCDA turned 40. And so, and celebrating that birthday, we thought, well.
So you've been here since birth?
No, I have not, but IHCDA has turned 40. So I think the guys have, to celebrate that, we've created a logo to celebrate the 40th anniversary of IHCDA. And the staff helped select that logo. And so we've also created a hashtag Throwback Thursdays. For each Thursday on social media, we'll be posting old pictures of IHCDA and events that have taken place and the work that it's done. So we'll be doing that every Thursday throughout the year. And I think the guys are going to be bringing in a nice cake for all of you to enjoy. So
Where's the logo?
it's on the cake, and so I'll let them.
my gosh.
So there they are. So thank you, Brian and Brett. There you go. So there's a nice cake up there for
that's the
all of us
logo?
to enjoy, and everybody who's here can enjoy as well. And so
Goody.
yes,
You take a picture. The logo's on it.
yes, actually yes, it's very nice. So,
Really?
yeah.
Well, how wonderful.
Yeah.
Any questions for Jane? Any further business to come before the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion prevails, and we are adjourned. Until April 26th.
6.
26th. At Paoli.
There you go.
Hopefully warmer weather.
There's-
I have no idea.